Back in session. Joint Appropriations Committee, Don, you want to call the roll, please?
Representative Kinner.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative Schwartz. Representative Simpson.
Here.
Representative Stith.
Here.
Representative Walters.
Here.
Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Hicks. Senator Kinski.
Here.
Senator Steinmetz. Co-Chairman Perkins.
Here.
Chairman Nicholas.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All righty, Don, you want to walk us through just a quick outline of what we need to get done today? What we're going to do?
Mr. Chairman, I think the plan for today is round robin. I anticipate, of course, your direction that you may have some modifications or clarifications or new amendments to the budget bill, capital construction bill, the ARPA bill, or Governor's Letter 17. Upon completion of that, typically the committee takes a straw poll, not a final vote, but just a straw poll indicating general approval or disapproval of the three bills. So staff can proceed with writing up all of the bills requested, and you would meet at a later date to take final action.
Okay, any comments, Mr. Co-Chair?
Well, we're going to get. Mr. Chairman, it'll get hectic and we all want to get home and we're here a day longer than we wanted to be, but I just want to thank staff and Kevin, your staff in your office, and thank our staff and the members of the JAC for their time and their attention during our budget hearings. Just, I think we could always do better. We did that. I think we've done a good job. I think we've done probably the best we could do with it in the time allotted. And just proud of the work you've done, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your the humor and the in the debate and all those things. This is it's a lot of work, but the people you work with make it enjoyable. And just Mr. Co-Chairman, just thanks to everybody. Appreciate it.
We appreciate that. It's been a really a pleasure to work with the Senate side. It's just, this job is so much more fun when we like each other and we have discussions, both formal and informal, and so we can go home and just feel good about our relationships, even though we don't always agree. But it's just makes life better. So we appreciate it. All right. So Don, on the process, first thing will be the going through the various budgets. So I think typically what we've done in the past is we make a motion to open up anything agency 1 through 10, right?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We do have a list. I know several of you have your own lists. Staff will pause and not speak up until everyone else is complete. If we do have anything on the list that you did not raise, we'll bring that to your attention anonymously, and you can make a motion or not at that time.
Great. Yeah, be sure to remind us because we will forget. Okay, with that, any amendments or any requests to open agencies 1 through 10?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I move a request to remove that we will open up agency 1.
Agency 1.
And
All those-
we're off.
So all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Visiting with the governor's office and on some of the actions that we've done, I would move that in Unit 101 administration in the governor's office that we would appropriate $650,000 for the biennium, but we would make it. I think we make this effective immediately, so that he can get started. And what this is for, talking with the governor's office, there was a original request of $2 million that was in the conserved ARPA funds. And what the request is for the 650, and talking to the governor specifically for one AWAC, these are all one-time funds, one AWAC in the amount of $250,000 for the biennium. And then an additional $400,000 in this 900 series, and those are for two consultants that are 100,000 each for 2 years. And those are the purpose of those, Mr. Chairman, is the governor's office needs help on the coming infrastructure bill. As we all have looked at that, it's a massive undertaking. There's going to be a tremendous amount of effort and work that comes in to the governor's office, as well as we're going to find that to be probably just every bit as challenging as CARES, and if not even more than as CARES and ARPA. And so it's to help him with that. And then also, Mr. Chairman, there's those the two big projects we've talked about that we've given the $75 million out of ARPA conserved funds to pursue hydrogen and CCUS, carbon capture and underground storage projects, to have somebody to monitor and drive and move those things along. They need that additional capacity in the office. Mr. Chairman, that's the motion.
And the source of funds?
Source funds is conserved ARPA.
And
Everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Stiff.
and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, how much total money is it then that's being added?
$650,000. Broken down to $250,000 for one AWAC and $400,000 for in the 900 series for consultants.
Thank you.
Please.
That's one time.
One time,
Not to be included in the standard budget.
correct.
Okay, everyone understand the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carried. Any other motions in agency one? Any other motions? Please.
I would further amend on 01 to approve $20 million in direct ARPA for a series of grant programs to be administered by the governor for Wyoming Business Council, community colleges, Department of Workforce Services as follows. 1, with respect to the Wyoming Works program, use ARPA direct dollars first to the extent that is possible. 2nd, ARPA direct dollars for the following enumerated training programs proposed by the governor, and I'll give this list to staff. I've got it written out. He proposed a workforce development training fund for pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships. He proposed a targeted healthcare workforce program. His proposed targeted early childhood workforce program. His targeted dislocated underemployed Wyoming workforce talent transition program. He had a program, workforce development for targeted populations such as ex-convicts. He had a program, Wyoming Grown, to attract Wyoming individuals grown up here to return to Wyoming to pursue career opportunities. And then he had a proposal for training on economic development for community level folks. It's something that he asked for. Some of it was direct, some of it was above the line. And I thought I picked out the ones that I thought kind of made most sense. And to the extent that they can be funded out of below the line, I thought we ought to give it a shot. That's my motion. Only ARPA direct dollars, only.
Don, where are we with the latest actions on the ARPA direct expenditures?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I passed out a one-pager for you, and if you see the ARPA direct dollars on the far right middle of the page, we have about $250 million remaining in ARPA direct. I did put in a placeholder there for the $95 million water legislation, obviously not before this committee. And after you take that out, you would leave 150. And I'm rounding.
So this would take it down to 130.
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, any discussion? So I think we just got started and we're gonna have to take a time out. Let us talk about this. This is basically an ARPA.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw the motion.
When we open up the ARPA bill and address that motion and probably one or two others. Okay, any other amendments to Office of the Governor? Number one, we have a motion to close.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any, going back to agencies 1 through 10.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we open up Agency 4, State Treasurer's Office.
Agency 4, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Please proceed, Mr. Coach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we were here before, there was a number of personnel issues and the governor had made a number of recommendations because we were waiting for the 244 report, the House Bill 244 report to come back. So he denied a minute of those. We did some of those, also talking with some folks in the treasurer's office and some of the things that are happening over there. They continue to need some help in the back office as the investment function that they're doing over there and doing well is expanding. And so, Mr. Chairman, I think in what we need to do is I think if we go to just wanted to check on something on I think it was priority number 4, page 19. Did we approve that and that the movement that was, I think, priority number 4? I just wanted to check on that, Mr. Chairman.
I believe we denied that.
I think it starts on, well, see, I'm sorry, this would be priority 3. And so my understanding that was, I think, that we denied that we accepted the governor's rec, and so the movement was denied. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Chairman, that's correct. You accepted Governor's rec.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the denial of this request. And I don't know that 244 even addressed this, but overall, this provides them, I believe, with additional help on the administrative office. I think we've heard some of the testimony indicates that they could probably use some more help in the administrative office. And so this, ultimately, all this did was move a position out of the unclaimed property division and move it up into the administration, the administrative unit. Isn't that right? Is that correct, Don?
Mr. Chairman, that's how I understand it.
So there's no dollars from that, and I'm just, whatever help we can give them over there, I think we ought to give them the help that they, that within reason that they do, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
And the movement, so the movement was to actually, we ought to make sure we get that motion right. So our motion was,
Mr. Chairman, it was
we
to
accepted
adopt,
the gov's rec, and so the true motion is what?
to adopt priority number 3, allowing the movement. I believe this is 50% generally funded, 50% special revenue. And the special revenue is investment income as opposed to unclaimed property income. So these will have an impact on the profile. And then I presume you want to do the other half of this motion as well, which is to move the same position from unclaimed property.
That's correct. So do we need to,
And so what's,
that was the intent of the motion. Do we need to redo that, or let's go ahead, Mr.
so my question is, this position that when it goes over to the transfers over, would all of it be under the investment funding?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the request is for 50% general funds, 50% special revenue.
So it'll be a net zero to the general fund, but it'll decrease, and whatever it decreases to the unclaimed property
Right.
special revenue fund, it'll be absorbed by the investment revenue. Is that correct?
Apologies, Mr. Chairman.
So the other unit was 903. Well, actually, I thought the movement, no, I'm sorry. 801.
Mr. Chairman, it is on page 59 of your budget books, the second half.
I can't understand.
Apologies. Mr. Chairman, it is on page 59 of your budget books, the
59.
second half. Yep, in unit 801.
So, Mr. Chairman, the net effect is increase in general funds of 150,000 and an increase in special revenue of a like amount.
Okay, that's right. So do we need to redo them?
Oh, 105, excuse me, 105,000.
You can't allocate because it's not all specialized. It's not associated with investment.
Okay, one more time, as amended, as just explained by LSO. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other?
Yes, a couple more, Mr. Chairman. I want to do, let's see, now I've got that taken care of. That's not taken care of. So, Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of other, and I think this one, I'm not sure what department this would go in, Mr. Chairman, but I would move that we allow and provide for a new position. And this new position would be either a chief operating officer or a chief executive officer of that would be over the investment accounting. And the reason I haven't designated that is this person, anyway, Mr. Chairman, that's the reason I haven't designated this person is that I would like the IFC to interview and to recommend that the treasurer, both as too far as that the person this would be and whether they would be a CEO or a COO. And this is something that came back in the study. It's something I think in that back office that it's kind of new in that back office, and the back office is struggling to get the procedures set up. We've got a major investment accounting system that needs to be implemented over the next little while. That office is completely stressed, and with some of the troubles that have shown up in the audit, it's just that box is just absolutely stressed. It's just got more, and between there and the administrative office, just more than they can handle. Plus, I think this is all new ground for everyone over there, and that they need some of this help to do. So that's the motion, and then incumbent in that motion is then the state treasurer would then accept the recommendation of the IFC. And I would just remind the committee, the treasurer is the chairman of the IFC, so it's not like the treasurer is not involved in this process. The amount that I believe we need to do is $700,000 for the biennium. And that would be the salary. It's $500,000 a biennium. It's $250,000 a year is the salary, and then you'll have to do so I think that total number will be somewhere around about 750, I think, with benefits, but we'll let you guys calculate that.
So I'll second the motion. And so on the amount of the salary, that's commensurate to what other CEOs or COOs would do in this type of position. Is that?
That's right. This is essentially a parallel, essentially the same salary that I think this chief investment officer is getting. So this is basically structurally, if it's chief operating officer, that person is going to be at the same level, just a different department as the CIO, and it's the same type of expertise that's required.
It's just effective immediately.
It'd be effective immediately, so that when they find the right person, they can bring them on.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, on page 67, there is a narrative associated with the 500,000 direct salary, and they have an estimate of benefits on page 67.
Yeah, and I think that was for the chief strategy officer that we denied,
It's similar. Yeah.
but it's very similar. That's correct.
Representative Schwartz,
And this will be special revenue, correct?
correct.
That's correct. This is all back in the account. We call it the back office. It's all in the back office of the accounting of the investment function.
So, and Mr. Chairman,
So, but page 67 is not in investments. It's in the investment. I think it's in investment accounting unit.
Mr. Chairman, my point is that they had an estimate of the $500,000
Yeah.
salary, then they have the benefit estimates there for you. if you wanted to use it.
There, yeah.
Yeah, we can adopt those numbers already calculated there.
Representative Stiff,
same question. So the number then becomes 651,066 for the total. Is that correct?
That's correct.
and so the next question is, because of what this person does, is there any opportunity for him to participate in the performance comp?
I don't remember if the back office people participate in
They don't, but this one may, but I guess what we have to do is pose that question to the IFC.
I think that's fair.
Okay, any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else?
Yes, two more items in this, and so one of them would be in the investment accounting unit. Just a general footnote. One of the problems that we've had in the last several years in trying to get the audit done is that we're not unable to reconcile investment income and also investment income, and ultimately when you struggle there, then you ultimately can't reconcile cash. And ultimately, what through this process, we've learned that they only reconcile cash once a year, and they only do this once a year. And talking to some members of the IFC, it's probably more appropriate that this be done quarterly. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we have a footnote that asks beginning in October of 2022, beginning in October of 22, that they would reconcile cash, begin to reconcile cash quarterly report to the JAC with the JAC and the Select Committee on Capital Finance. The results of the reconciliation or the efforts on
Is
reconciliation.
there a second? So, Mr. Co-Chair, then the question to me would be, theoretically, when they update the software computer program that will allow this to happen a lot quicker, I presume. But until then, are they going to need someone else in the office to assist in performing this function?
Mr. Chairman, I did talk with the deputy director yesterday, and they are looking for and seeking to find some additional help, kind of like they did last year, to come in and help them with this and help them get over this crisis, get over this bump. And so I think we kind of let that share out. I would hope that when we get that and when they get the accounting system, that will help. But and she also told me that they have saved enough money on fees in the office. Because one of the big appropriations we make is to pay the fees for the different managers, and they've saved enough money on fees from the internal trading, and then also from driving better bargains with their managers, that she has enough money to pay for that from her fees. So they don't need additional appropriation right now for that.
Okay. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else? We said two more. One more?
One more, Mr. Chairman, and then the other thing I would like to do is the IFC came back with their report. The Select Committee on Investments and Finance received that report, and there's a lot of things in it. But I would like to, particularly in this back office, I'd like to direct the staff of the State Treasurer's Office to work with the IFC to implement the recommendations with respect to the investment accounting back office function, to get that implemented.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carried. Any other motions on the treasurer's office? Agency 04, seeing none, motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carried. Okay, 1 through 10, I think there was a motion that was going to be made in agency 6.
No, I talked to the governor's office. We're going to take care of that.
Which one?
About getting HR person back, embedded back in the treasurer's office.
I think there was one more.
I have one. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to open Agency 6, Administration,
All
and
those in favor say
Information.
aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move for, and I don't know which division this would go in, but it would be $1 million for a sound study and improvements based on that study to the capital and capital extension.
Do we have a second?
Second, as we hear the echo in the room.
Okay. Please proceed.
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman,
Go ahead.
there's so much echo, I couldn't hear him. Could you please repeat the motion?
Mr. Chairman, for $500,000, I'll just tell you which rooms I have a hard time hearing in.
I'll do it for a quarter.
So does everyone understand the motion?
Yep.
I mean, we've just got to have a study to figure out how to make this room work.
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Oh, and source of funds would be
General Fund.
general fund. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Are all those opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Don?
Mr. Chairman, just a clarification, that is for a study and begin to implementation of the,
Yeah.
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
And so the, before we close that, so we have the wayfinding committee that is basically monitoring and doing the improvements, the $2 million that we appropriated last session. So really, then they would have, Don, do we need to do anything to have that go so that they have the ability to expend these funds? What would that process be?
Mr. Chairman, I think there is that prior appropriation from the capital preservation account. I think two things. One, you may want to expand the purposes for which the funds can be expended. And two, we're coming up on closing out of the actual facility here and whether or not you wanted to.
Just pour in the, I think, I don't know how many funds are there, but there's a little bit left over that would go into this wayfinding committee fund as well.
If you so desire.
So would this be the place to do it? That's my question.
Mr. Chairman, it would probably be appropriate in the capital construction bill.
Okay. So and what about what we just did?
What you did here is appropriate for A&I if you
Okay.
so desire.
All right, any other?
Chairman?
Go ahead.
Just a question. I can't imagine that it's going to cost $1 million, but if they come up with a recommendation, the way I understand the motion, it wouldn't allow them to go actually. In other words, let's say the study is a $150,000 study. I'd like to have them, if they've got a recommendation, that they go ahead and implement some of this stuff right away. The way that I think it's currently structured, it's only for a study. Is that not correct?
No, it's to implement as well. And, but the implementation will go through the wayfinding committee because that's got legislative on it and also the slip board designations, because we don't want them to do something that we don't approve of in terms of how we treat this building and preserve the. So part of the study is not only how, obviously we know there's a sound problem, but then we're going to have to even, it has to address the aesthetics of this particular building and conform with the design and all that kind of stuff.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
For example, if they come back with a recommendation that you do a drop ceiling. Then we start to move back right where we were, just.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the good thing about that in is maybe we wouldn't have to have a qualified electrician get up on a ladder.
That's a good point.
Clean the millers out.
Good.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Who's going to do the plan?
Mr. Chairman, my question to our staff is, do I need to modify that motion to include in their study that A&I will partner with the existing wayfinding committee or whatever that committee is called on these recommendations?
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be appropriate.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would modify the amendment or the motion
I think that's a friendly amendment to the original amendment.
that the existing is, I don't know if it's called the wayfinding committee, but the existing capital improvement committee or whatever that precise title is, would be
Yeah.
would be in consultation with them for the improvements of as for sound.
Okay, as modified, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Motion to close, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, anything else in 1 through 10? Don, anything on your notes? All right, I'm going to 11 through 20. Is there a motion? 11 through 20, Don? I don't see any. I don't see any hands going up. 21 through 30. Go ahead. Yeah.
What agency is
We're
this?
we're up.
We're on 21.
Yep, to 30.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I move to open up agency 024 State Parks, Cultural Resources to unit 450.
Okay, Steve. Parks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, my motion in unit 450 is to give the ability for state parks to use the funds we authorized that originated with the Office of Tourism to use to be for administrative purposes for the outdoor recreation as well, up to the amount of $800,000. There was,
What page is that on?
that's on page 83, the first one. And then that's the request for administration for outdoor recreation. And then the second one is on page 85, where we put that spending, where we have that, what is it called? The outdoor no, it's on 83. It's on the outdoor recreation tourism product development granting.
And so I'm going to page 83, and it's got there was funding mechanisms highlighted. Which ones of those are being funded?
Just,
Mr. Chairman, in my amendment, it would be the 800,000. Now, if you turn over to page 84, you will see that in the request that we granted for the use of those Office of Tourism funds, there's duplication of 25,000 in advertising, in-state travel, and assigned vehicles, but I believe the function of those are different than in the administration component. So I was going to leave them with the ability to do their administration as outlined that we didn't fund.
Okay,
Well, we-
discussion.
hang on, so, they're great. So what's the number that you're thinking that you need to move?
Ask that question again, please.
What's, you're using the motion to move all 800,000?
The ability to up to that amount of 800,000 to be used out of the funds that we give them the authorization to use in the tourism product development granting. And then, Mr. Chairman, as we was looking at that, you'll see that there's some advertising, the state travel and vehicles that is also listed down in as part of that 2 million, but I believe that that's a different purpose. And so that's why I was going to grant them the authorization to use the full 800,000 authority to use up to that 800,000.
Mr.
Just wait. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Mr. Chairman.
so when I go, so Mr. Chairman, just looking at, so the office that we're talking about, if you go to page 83, that's the $800,000 request. And so if we look at that, I think the numbers that we need to have are $100,000 for salaries, which in talking with that, those are the seasonal people that are hired to come. This office already exists. It's already functioning, but they have, this is the $100,000 they hire for their seasonal help. And so we need to do that. There's no money for communication in the one down below. So I think we need to add the 17. There is advertising promotion down there, so I don't know that they need that. There's in-state travel down there. I don't know that they need that. The out-of-state travel, I'm ambivalent about, but there's 8,000 there. They probably need this permanently assigned vehicle of 75,000. And then they've got supplies of 100,000. When I add that up, I'm right at $300,000. And so, Mr. Chairman, if it's a friendly amendment, I'd move that what we do is we would authorize them to use up to $300,000 of money from that fund for that purpose.
Mr. Chairman, I'm comfortable with that, except for the advertising. You do away with 100,000 and allow them to have 25,000.
Mr. Chairman, I think that I think that they could, I mean, is there anything that would prevent them from using a little bit of the 1.85 million, which has now been doubled to, so that's really 3.8 million that's for grant payments that they couldn't squeeze out the advertising out of that number?
Well, I think that's a question I guess that I couldn't answer. I just see that we have line items there for advertising and we're whacking that. And so if we feel, if Dawn or if Kevin maybe could answer that, would they be able to take out of their 600 series and move up to their 200 series for?
Not 200, but.
Well, that's what they have it down. 208 is what the object code there.
I'm sorry, yes.
The answer is yes.
So they could do that. So if that's the case, then Mr. Chairman, I would call that a friendly amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Further discussion.
I just want for the chairman and for Representative Larson, just so I understand the motion. During regular markup, we took the $800,000 out. We deleted that. And this motion, is my understanding, does not add any new money back in. It just changes the authority to how to spend it. Is that correct?
Almost. It gives them the authority to use the next funding source to accomplish some of the same stuff.
What I meant to say. Yes, thank you.
Kevin,
So, Mr. Chairman,
one second, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, is this just considered a footnote?
Yeah, there's a footnote. Yeah.
And we'll get in.
so
There's a footnote coming.
There's a footnote coming. That's quoted.
if I'm tracking now, we're at an authorization, 300,000 instead of 800,000.
Yes.
Correct. All right, thank you.
Right. And then Mr. Chairman, we'd like to also offer a footnote directing the agency to come back in their next standard budget with a unit for outdoor recreation and a proposed budget to fund that unit.
And an explanation of everything that they did with the dollars as well, right?
That's, yes. That was just me throwing my voice over.
Okay. Any questions on that component? Don? We all set? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else in tourism?
No, the state parks.
State parks, excuse me, state parks?
Move to close 24.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, we're back to 20 units or agencies. Through, please go ahead.
I move to open up Agency 27, State Construction Department.
State construction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to refer the committee to unit 1407. And if we could look on page 37 of the unit's narrative, in our action on Monday, we didn't accept Gov's rec, and we removed 3.9 million of demolition fees to the Tonkin Activity Center. And upon further getting information back from the school district on the condition of that building and what it would require to make it, bring it up to 8, I think is just going to be, we would be better to start over with a new building. And so I would move to adopt Gov's rec with a footnote directing the agency to continue to look for options to consolidate existing state agencies or future additional state agencies located in Riverton.
Second.
Question.
Aye.
Question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Move to close.
No, not yet. Oh, we got one more motion. Sorry.
So, Mr. Chairman, going back to what we were doing just a minute ago, where would we do this? Would we do this where we consolidate these accounts that are kind of hanging out there from the capital reconstruction and we move this to an end?
Mr. Chairman, no, actually, it's in 227 that you would do that motion.
Oh, okay.
However, your prior motion for the sound system is most appropriately put in 027, not in 006, meaning CMD.
That was my thinking, but that's probably right. So can we just make a motion to transfer that from 06 to 027?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, motion to close 027. All those in favor say aye.
Capcons?
Right. No, we're in
Just capital construction.
capital construction. As amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, anything else 1 through 30? 31 through 40. 31 through 40.
Mr. Chairman,
Please. Vice President.
I move that we open Agency 39, Wildlife Natural Resource Trust.
Wildlife Natural Resource Trust. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask staff, we've had a request to include a footnote that would allow the transfer of some federal dollars into an account for expenditure through the natural trust. So if we could have that language.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think the proposed language, and it does mention a specific business here. However, that is consistent with the past practice. The last account we created under such a condition was prepared in 2005. The language would read, there is hereby established the Rocky Mountain Power Fund within the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resources Trust for the administration and management of funds required for development of energy infrastructure in Wyoming.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Anything
Move to
else?
close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else? Units up to 40. Seeing none. 40 through 50. Please, go ahead. Vice Chair.
I just have a quick question for
Go
staff.
ahead.
Don or Elizabeth, in 48, in unit 5002, which is Y-Highs. As I recall, we authorized $2.7 million. Was that general fund?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. So if I want to swap, I should wait until the ARPA.
You can do it here. You want? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, you could do it.
I move we open agency 48.
Mr. Chairman, before we get there, could we open 45?
We can go back.
Okay,
We don't have to.
okay.
All those in favor of 48, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Go ahead and make a motion.
On unit 5002 Y-Highs. We authorized 2.7 million for the balance of the biennium. And I would move that we use ARPA direct funding there to the extent that the department can do so. It appears they can, but I'm giving them a little bit of wiggle room.
Okay, everyone understand? Don, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, and a reduction of the general funds?
And like reduction of the general fund.
Mr. Question,
Representative,
if I understand, this is the Wyoming Home Services Program effective immediately for this biennium.
Yep.
It's my understanding that in the general markup, we took it out already.
Mr. Chairman, you required the department to use their own funds for the balance of this year, fiscal year 22. I believe Senator Kinski's motion, it relates to fiscal year 23, which you did leave in, and then fiscal year 24 you removed. I believe the senator's amendment applies to that fiscal year 2023.
So Mr. Chairman, then I do want the department to be able to recoup what they've spent out of their own funds as well as for FY23.
Nothing changes.
This is just, all we're doing is trying to use direct ARPA.
okay.
Chairman, for
Understand.
clarity. For clarity in your amendment, does it say if direct ARPA is not available, then the general funds would still be available?
Correct.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
All
Any
done.
other motions in Department of Health?
Move to close.
Move to close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move to open agency 45, Wyoming Department of Transportation.
Wyoming Department of Transportation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, that is open.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the true up, you might say, from yesterday's ARPA Direct conversation. If you go to page 126, Division 0600, Unit 063, I would move to reduce by 9,907,916.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, discussion? You want to explain?
This is the true up on the WildLink RIS conversation from yesterday.
Okay.
And I'll have another motion following this one to continue this activity.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and staff will know exactly where to place this. But I would I move $20 million S7, which is highway funds, for the purpose of RIS.
Second.
And do you also have language to authorize the use of those funds?
Mr. Chairman, I believe this would be the authorization for those funds.
Okay.
Or my intent is that this would be the authorized 20 million for RIS and authorization to proceed. And in the action we took yesterday, we put in all of the language about the ETS CIO doing the review of the proposals and whatnot.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Kevin, you're comfortable with this, with the way it's drafted? Go ahead.
So it's a cross-reference to our prior motion that said it's not to go until the ETS director says it's a go.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, with that, do you want that same language here?
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be advisable to have that same language here.
I would, yeah, okay.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else in white up? Move to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else, 40 through 50? 40 through 50. All right, 51 through 60. Don?
Chairman,
Go ahead.
we go back to agency 60.
Yes. Agency 60. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Please proceed.
Oh, I thought you were first. All right. Mr. Chairman, in agency, in Department 60 in Division 0900 mineral royalty grants, I would move that we revert the $25,400,000 previously appropriated to the general fund.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Nothing further. Move to close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Go ahead, Don.
Apologies, that was 25 million even.
It's $25,400,000 in Division 0900.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative,
move to open agency 57.
Staff has a question.
go ahead, Don.
Mr. Chairman, that a lot of that money is just authority to spend. For example, I believe of that 25 million, there's 11 million in there from co-lease bonuses. So it's really just not actual dollars.
Right.
Okay.
It's there, we spend, it's like we're in Washington then. We spend money that doesn't exist?
No, Mr. Chairman, when you're moving other funds to general funds, the distinction is other funds is the authority to spend. General funds is actually dollars in hand. So you're moving money, you're moving an authorization to an expenditure.
We're going to give it back in a little while.
We're going to give them back. Thank you. So there's not actually money in this.
Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, to go along with Don, I think this is simply spending authority. So is the motion just to eliminate the spending authority, or is it to move money that doesn't exist?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, this historically is just a budget for spending authority if it becomes available. The conversation that we had was just to eliminate the spending authority because we don't think that we're going to get co-lease bonus dollars in the future. So is this motion just to simply eliminate the spending authority, or is there an intent to move some money that I don't know that exists to the general fund?
You know, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm looking at page 112 of the narrative. And it says it's 29% severance distribution, $7.3 million, 27% federal mineral royalties, 6.85, 45% co-lease bonus, 11.250. To the extent that any of those funds materialize, we'd sweep them back into the general fund. I think that's how it would work.
Yeah, to the extent that they come, yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So do you have I think we just have this as an open discussion.
Mr. Chairman, my question then is, if we sweep this to the general fund, we actually make it available for spending. If we leave it where it is, it's not necessarily available for spending. I think we could leave it here and eliminate the spending authority. And if we eliminate the spending authority, the money stays where it is and no one spends it, whether it be on the executive side or on the legislative side. If we make the transfer as proposed, then it hits the general fund and is available for legislative expenditure. Is that the, I believe that would be the process. Is that the desire? Two questions.
Yes, sir. It can go to LISRA, it can go to general fund, but I want to make it available for the biennium because there's, as Senator Hicks will be making a motion subsequently that'll
Replace the money.
replace the money.
So let's go to the next motion.
You know, we're gonna create a new program for water and sewer
Right.
out of a different fund. So we don't want to replace this authority.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's on.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think I know what the motion is, but let me see if I can recapture it. The motion would be to eliminate the spending authority. And then if any of those monies do come in to an account, they would automatically transfer to the general fund. That,
Correct.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I just clarified.
So then I want to, because I'm easily confused. I thought we had some conversation that we would want to keep the spending authority, but sweep the funds. And so if I could get a little clarification from.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think
Please.
we will authorize spending authority for those other source of funds when they become available.
And I understand that. This spend is, Don, is this spending authority as it is currently written specific to
Yes.
those types of dollars. And so if we sweep these funds and leave this, but we could renew that spending authority in the next biennium, right? Okay, I'm with you. Thank you for your patience all.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Move to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carried. Okay, we're 51 through 60,
Mr. Chairman, move to open agency 57.
57. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, I would move in unit 201 to increase state aid by $7.2 million for the purpose of defraying utilities costs.
Mr. Chairman, could you please repeat that?
I'd move to, in unit 201, to increase state aid by $7.2 million with the intent that it go to the additional utilities costs. That begins on page 33.
Yeah, let's have a quick timeout.
Okay. Is that not the right?
Maybe none at all.
Mr. Chairman, I just missed what happened.
It's what we're best at, nothing.
Through 60. Let's go 61 through 7.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Schwartz,
move to open 66 Wyoming Office of Tourism.
please do.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion requiring the Wyoming Office of Tourism to do a study on design, location, and costs for improved signage related to the Northeast Welcome Center, Southeast Welcome Center, and Quebec One, and report to the Joint Appropriations Committee by July 1st. This report should also include visitation data.
Source of funds,
It's just a study.
just a footnote, okay.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. No, wait, I think there was one more. Representative Walton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move $2 million from the Wyoming Office of Tourism Reserve and Project account for the purpose of wayfinding in the Wyoming State Capitol and Extension.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, I want to think about this one. This is out of the travel and tourism tax collections.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a little bit of stretch for me, but I understand what we're trying to do here. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I haven't heard anything, Mr. Chairman, from the wayfinding committee that there was a significant deficient amount of money. I think there's already still a current balance in there.
So let me just update you on what that is. There's a tentative report from the consultant that was retained by the wayfinding committee that came up with a plan to perform the wayfinding. And basically they came out with a spectrum of different things. The top number was approximately $10 million. The bottom number was about $4.5 to $5 million, over and above anything that we have now. And so, but they're formalizing that, and that this committee meets on the 4th and 5th of February to go through that 10 million and start and strike and add, and basically to pare it down because it's just too dang high. But we do know at a minimum, we're going to need at least another $2 million to get to get the wayfinding one that is kind of be the lower end model. And so, and as you recall, it was $4.5 million when we presented it to this committee last year, and this committee cut that back to 2. So what we're doing, and if you look in the budget for the tourism, they assign certain amounts of dollars to assist in the capital project, and we've had that discussion about that. So what we're doing is saying we need that 2 million and actually it was 2.5 million that was cut by this committee last year, just to get the base system in that was recommended to us by these consultants. And the consultants will be here on the 4th and the 5th, and we'll start paring that down to a number that we can afford. But we're going to need at least at a minimum $2 million to do it. And really, all this is really for the tourists. I mean, so this is exactly what I think what the lodging tax dollars are for. You know, for the school buses, for everyone that walks in the store, for the wayfinding, for the signage, all those components. So you know, we're going to make it as inexpensive as possible, but without it, we can't get it done. So,
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
I have no doubt for the need, but having fought and lost against the increase in the travel and tourism tax, I guess I'd like to protect it from various folks dipping in there, including the legislature. Why wouldn't we just do this out of the general fund as opposed to reaching into the travel and tourism tax? Although I'll defer to my colleague from Jackson, who thoroughly
That could be a friendly amendment.
defeated
if
me
we
on the
pass
floor
it.
on the tax.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd have to disagree with my colleague from Sheridan County. I do think that this is potentially an appropriate source of money. I just know, it seems like on our side of the building, this has been a pretty contentious item. And my preference would be to wait till we see the report and maybe, bring that back as an amendment to the budget. But again, I think it may be an appropriate source of money to use that lodging tax, but I just need to see a little more details before I'm going to charge down there. And anyway, that's just my concern, Mr. Chairman.
I can show it to him in the break. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. That motion carries. Motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next agency. We're at, Don, where are we at?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a revision in 067 for matching funds from 28.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, which is the University of Wyoming.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. First question is on, I just wanted to understand, it's just a question. I think it was priority 1B, which was the compensation for the University of Wyoming, and with the governor's compensation plan and the 54 million or whatever we appropriated in the compensation plan. I just wanted to get, if you could just help me understand how that affects the University of Wyoming.
Mr. Chairman, I could start and then Kevin could. Please.
Mr. Chairman, the statistics that have been provided to LSO within the $54 million in the governor's letter, the amount identified for the University of Wyoming is $13,377,055. Community colleges, $7,043,735.
Okay. So we need to take no action on that. Their priority was raises. That was denied. I just wanted to, so I have nothing else there. So with that, we'd go, Mr. Chairman, I think we just go to the, I think it's 67. It's on page 64. It's the matching funds. And we had, this just follow up on that yesterday. We had back in the core lab on the matching funds, we had moved that up to 28 million. I just moved to reduce that now to just 20 to 25 million.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other,
Mr. Chairman,
please?
I would also move on the same one to, with respect to this property, that I'd like a footnote that goes kind of dovetails with some of the stuff we talked about in Wyoming the other day. And I would like the footnote to say that the study shall include geologic formations and energy extraction conditions that would apply across Wyoming. So what I'm trying to do is just make sure that when we're investigating this, that we're doing it in formations and conditions which would duplicate Wyoming. Not going to be exclusive to Wyoming, but I want to make sure that it's dealing with rock as the enhanced oil recovery people said, Wyoming rock. I just want to make sure that when this technology, if it proves out, that it can be used in Wyoming.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We have geologic formations. So is it the intent to do geologic formations that are also found in Wyoming, or is it to do the work in the state of Wyoming?
We already covered the latter one in a prior footnote. This one is to make sure that the geologic formations they're studying also exist in Wyoming. It's not to make them clear, for example, Utica Shale. I'm not interested in Utica Shale if we don't have similar conditions. A semi-Permian basin. We don't have the same formations here. I'm not interested in funding additional research for the Permian basin if it's not applicable in Wyoming.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Any other things on University of Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I apologize, not on UW.
Okay.
Move to close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, anything else 61 through 70? You're looking, okay. go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, there was interest in an amendment in the governor's residence.
Oh. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman.
They wake up.
You got
No. Move that we open,
Mr.
63, open 63, the governor's residence.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. Jeremy, I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, the governor's residence, I have it on intelligence, and I don't want to say who because I don't want the first lady mad at anybody, but ultimately the first lady, she carried for her level 2 or step 2 and step 3 cuts last year. And ultimately, I think as you talk to people down there, it's just, there's not enough money to cut to do what the residence needs to do. So I just moved that we'd put $30,000 in Series 900 at the first residence.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Move to
Motion close.
Move to close.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, anything else? 61 through 70. Don?
Mr. Chairman, we have a technical item on agency 70, which is the EORC. You may not need a motion, but you'll recall that you allowed them to carry over 1.9 million, and you directed staff to identify how much of that would be ongoing. And the response from the agency is 400,000 would be ongoing and 1.5 million would be one time. The ongoing request that would become part of their standard budget would include 300,000 for outreach, 75,000 for training and development, and 25,000 for commission support. If you want to concur with that request for the 400 to be included in their standard budget, we would need direction from you to do so.
Well, Mr. Co-Chair, I'm not inclined to have it ongoing. If they want to come back and ask for it after they receive it.
Right. I'm the same thing. I think we'll just have them, the 400, they just need to come back and we'll talk about that in the next budget. I think it's gonna be okay, but I'm not sure. And so let's just do it that way.
Okay, anything else? 161 through 70, or anything that we accidentally skipped? Okay, 71 through 80. 71 through 80. Don, anything on your notes? Elizabeth? 71 through 80. 81 through 90.
Mr. Chairman,
Please, Mr. Vice Chair.
I'm gonna find my piece of paper here. I would move to open Wyoming Business Council Unit 85, Unit 201, SBIR grants.
What agency was that again?
It's 85 Wyoming
85?
Business Council,
Okay,
Unit 201, SBIR. This was an original agency request of, I would move,
motion to open. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
I would move that we restore the funding for the SBIR grants at the level of $5 million. And it has to be general funds. This is a scientific research grant, which has been heavily drawn upon for the last couple of decades. And it's led to, besides breakthroughs, it's led to one heck of a lot of jobs. And this 5 million is state funding that matches federal funding. So we have to use our own money. And I'd, any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. We have a motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. 71 through 80, anything else, Don? Or 90?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one on 90. This is the Energy Authority. And you'll recall they transferred the energy program from the Wyoming Business Council to the Wyoming Energy Authority last year in statute. Staff came to you and requested the federal funds authorization to be increased for the Wyoming Energy Authority in the amount of $582,811. And you in fact adopted that motion. We now find out that they are a separate operating entity and the state does not appropriate their federal funds as they have a direct agreement with the Department of Energy that does not pass through the state. So
We need to undo our motion.
correct. You need to reduce the federal funds by $582,811.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Oh, move to open first. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those,
Remove.
same motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Don, do we have to do anything else? Or, okay, motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, we're at 90. Anything but 81 through 90? Anything else? Going once, going twice. Okay, 91 through 100. Actually, we got bigger clips now. We can go 90, like 100 through 150.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to open 101 Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page SC9, there's a work study that we approved, and I just want to add a footnote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I'd move that we have a footnote that would, with respect to the workload study, that it update to reflect changes in weighting, the current complication of the caseloads. And that also that we would like in the study for timekeeping to occur so that there can be a comparison between the weighted case study and actual. And that doesn't have to be system-wide, but we at least want a sample. And then that's,
That would be from both courts.
yes, from many courts that are engaging in the study,
So circuit and district.
circuit and district. And Mr. Chairman, we can deal with that one separately. I've got another one for the clerk study.
All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman, just a question.
Representative Stitt.
So, Mr. Chairman, so we're telling the judges they're going to keep timesheets.
We want them to at least create a sample in one of the studies. We want some actuals to compare with the.
I fully support that. I think that's fine.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay. Next.
Yeah, and I'd like another footnote, because the other part of that study is and this, maybe they're combined into the same footnote as when they get on the budget, but I'd also like with the, they're going to workload study for the clerks. And I'd like the workload study to result in a report that shows a comparison of a clerk's office that's automated with the electronic filing versus one that's still going manually. So we can see the effect of automation on the clerks.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else in the courts?
Move to close.
All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. So 101 through 200. Anything else? Let's go to the 205, 206.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
move to open agency 205, education, school finance.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I would take you to page 25, which is the education, school finance, National Board Certified Teachers, Unit 4503.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we eliminate the $4.208 million for National Board Certified Teachers out of the S5, which is a school foundation account. Further add a footnote that the school districts are authorized to go ahead and fund those positions out of their block grant or any other source of funding available.
Second.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, could you bring me up to speed? But I have recollection that we have statutory language that requires us to do that.
Mr. Chairman, this would just be one time during, for this biennium. It still authorizes the funding of these positions.
Well, and I appreciate that, but it doesn't change statutes for one time. I think state statutes require the state to fund that, not the districts.
So
Am I mistaken on that?
So, Mr. Chairman, we would be through the block grant funding those positions.
Yeah. So my question is, Don, last biennium, we cut the funding in half, I believe. And so that, and then required, if the districts wanted to pay the full amount, that would come out of their block grant. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, a little bit different. In the 2020 session, you reduced it from $4,000 to $3,000, and then did not require the districts to make up the $1,000. The governor vetoed that language and it was never implemented.
The language was never, so the whole thing was never.
The whole thing was moved.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm just conscious of the fact that we still have a $100 million structural deficit in the school foundation program, and we've seen a significant infusion of federal dollars through ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and still money coming in through ESSER 3. And we know that there's a number of districts around the state that have used these for bonuses and some salary support, not undifferent than what we've done with conserved dollars here, that I think there would be at least an adequate enough funding in the district right now to cover this expense for the next biennium.
Go ahead.
So I'm just trying to recall the efforts that we've done on this. And so this isn't the funding of those positions. It's the stipend we give them for being board certified, I believe. And so then we come back and we looked at that a couple of years ago, and it remind me, Don, if you can, that we come back and say, and it's out there a few years, then we do something with this board certification where there's kind of a sunset on what we do. Can you remind me of what we do there? Maybe I'm been eating too many mushrooms again. I don't.
Mr. Chairman, are you referencing we had a private foundation that was provided? That's not it. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you may very well have. I just don't recollect.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, so my question, I guess, for staff is whether we're allowed to do this. Wyoming Statute 21-7-501F provides that each district employing a national board certified teacher shall be reimbursed for payments to these teachers. And so it's mandatory reimbursement language. So it seems to be like transportation expenses are reimbursed or special ed is reimbursed. So is it, can we do
No,
this?
I think the motion is that that has to come out of their block grant, in essence, as opposed to us funding it.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that, but it seems like that's different from reimbursement, right? I mean, if you're giving them a block grant, you're giving them a block grant and saying, pay it out of that. So I guess my question is, can we call that reimbursement?
Well, we did it and passed it. Well, actually, it was vetoed, but we did a similar thing. It was just a little bit, this one's a little bit more draconian.
No, Mr. Chairman, I actually think this is, because before we did cut the amount of reimbursement that was available. We said they can replace it.
Right.
So, however you want to view it, but I'm just cognizant if there's been a significant amount of federal funds fused in there, that for the biennium, it looks like this is not that big of an issue, but from a standpoint of the district having the money to do it, I'm just conscious of the $100 million structural deficit that we have.
So Don, when we did it last in 2020, was it in the agency or was that section 300?
Mr. Chairman, it was in section 300, and we likely would do, with your permission, we would likely reduce the table and write an explanatory section 300.
So would it be a friendly amendment to just to recreate what we did 2 years ago? So best basically cut it in half. Okay. You want a timeout? Okay. Well, how many more amendments do we got? The question is, do we want to plow through this and just get it all done before we take lunch? Oh, let's take a quick timeout.
No.
Yeah.
Not you.
I would make a friendly amendment that, but to have have it conform basically with the action that we took 2 years ago, which would be to reduce it back down to a $2,000 contribution per year, similar to what we've done in the past, and then allow the school districts to pay the other half in lieu of the what used to be the L. Bogan Foundation funds that used to match this.
I'd consider that a friendly amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. That motion carries. Any other motions?
Nope, move to close.
Don, language is all okay?
Mr. Chairman, I think I understand, and half of that appropriation would be reduced.
Right.
Thank you.
Motion to close. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Okay, anything, what's next, Don, on our list? We're at 2:05.
Agencies, you could either proceed to section 300s or capital construction, which is agency
Let's
227.
do Capcom. That shouldn't take too long.
I believe there are a handful suggested.
Mr. Chairman, I move we open
All those
227
in favor
Capcom.
say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Don, what's the first one on your list?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's a modification to the lease provision in Western Wyoming College.
Yes, Mr.
Sam
Chairman,
Stiff.
I would move to amend our footnote to state that should Western Wyoming Community College elect to lease a space, that no matching funding would be required.
You want to just explain?
And Mr. Chairman, the idea is if they construct, then we have a one-to-one match, and it's about $4.3 million. It may turn out that it's substantially more economical to lease, but there's some incentive for them to do. This gives them some incentive to do the more economical option. That's the purpose of this. It has no change to the funding amounts.
What if the lease is more than?
If then they've made a bad decision, and they've exhausted all the funds, and then they get evicted after they can't pay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Next one, Don. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
please.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kinner.
Also, in this whole group, I guess, under capital construction in unit 7221, which I believe is for the Northern Wyoming Community College District Sheridan College, I would like to amend the language somehow, and Don, we'll let you do the proper wording, but basically for construction and or remodel and renovation of an existing building, which would include landscaping and appropriate amenities.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion?
Second.
No change in dollars, right?
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Don, what's next on your list? Any more in Capcom?
Mr. Chairman, I think this is where you had a continuation of the discussion earlier today.
Right.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, so along, what's that we've got, my recollection is we've got a number of these accounts that are kind of hanging out there from when we were redoing the Capitol and the Herster building. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we transfer, this is on the, for capital projects, I transfer any unappropriated funds in the capital restoration and renovation account to the capital preservation account. So removing the capital restoration renovation, just put it in the capital preservation account. And then eliminate the capital restoration and renovation account upon final expenditure of any appropriated funds. Because I think there's still some encumbered items in there that have to be dealt with before that happens. And also amend the capital preservation account to be continuously appropriated for fabrication, other existing permissible uses regarding the preservation of the capital and grounds.
Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, anything else? In Capcom, Don?
I think you've addressed most of those issues. Yes.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to proceed next to Governor's Letter number 17, which was the ARPA funds and some conserved general funds. I think some members wanted to revisit a couple of those.
Okay. So, yeah, well, let's just go to 17, or do we need to work on? Yeah, okay. Let's go to Gov's Letter number 17.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
do we need to reopen or do it?
Yes.
Move to reopen?
Say aye.
Nope.
Aye.
All those opposed, that motion carries.
It's a great degree of trepidation that I reopened, but after all the work that went into it, but you'll recall previously, we zeroed out the mineral royalty grants or reeled those in. This is a substitute. It would be $50 million for water and sewer grants out of ARPA Direct. And the intent here is that the local governments that previously were coming in for MRGs can now come in for ARPA Direct. The reason that we didn't want to do the same spending authority is there are some differences between what you're eligible for under MRG and what you have to do under ARPA. So rather than try to fit a round peg in a square hole, we're just going to stand up a program under SLIB that'll hand out water and sewer grants. And
Does everyone understand the motion? Don, you want to just kind of restate the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I understand a $50 million appropriation from direct ARP to be administered by the Office of State Lands, approved by the SLIB board for the purposes of eligible and permissible local government water and sewer grants.
it's exactly the way I said it. You're amazing.
Was there any limitation on amounts?
You can read back their amendment.
Projects or anything like that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
out of direct ARPA, $10 million to the governor's office for purposes of grant making and what I'm doing is taking a variety of things he'd asked for originally and rolling them up into this $10 million. Grants to go to Business Council, Department of Workforce Services, Community College, or UW. The purposes would be the workforce training programs he called out, and I'll go ahead and enumerate those. Workforce Development Training Fund for apprenticeships, Targeted Healthcare Workforce Program, Targeted Early Child Care Workforce Program, Targeting Dislocated or Underemployed Wyoming Workforce Talent Transition Program, and then Workforce Development Program for targeted populations such as ex-cons or people transitioning back on parole. The Wyoming Grown Upgrade Program, which is attracting people from the Great Wyoming diaspora back. And then the training on economic development for local communities. I think that was the IEDC. And I think that's it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else we need to do out of letter 17? Yes, please, go ahead.
Chairman, I'd like to
put a new line in letter 17, putting $5 million to the Department of Health for Health and Human Services capital improvements and distress provider relief. And if I get a second, I'll explain.
Second.
So, Mr. Chairman, in our current profile, we had initially the Department of Health had $40 million in there that we have since increased to 55 million, but the purpose for which it was originally intended has morphed significantly and for various health care construction projects around the state and so this brings it back and allows the Department of Health to look at improvements and provide some grants to the Department of Health as some improvement to providers around the state, and then to assess some of the distressed providers. And I would have language in there that I'll give to Dawn that reads something to this extent, that the Department of Health shall operate a program to provide grant funding to health and human service providers as specified to improve existing infrastructure and to provide financial relief to providers that are imminent of risk of closure. Grant allocations shall be distributed to provider groups as determined by the department.
Go ahead.
How would these be different than what's in the current $50 million? Or is this a supplement, or, you know, and I'm just trying to understand what the difference between this would be used for and what the other money that we've already put in there for construction and equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you go back and look at the Department of Health's original proposal of the $40 million, they took the provider groups across the board and they said, we're going to look at these provider groups and we're going to distribute these funds equitably according to groups. There wasn't going to be a cap of 5 million. There was what they had some analysis, and it could be for a parking lot, it could be for this, and it didn't require a matching fund. We come in and said, this is a tranche here that we could use for some ideas that we've been floating around for another time. And we're going to make the requests be matched and be up to a cap of $5 million. And we do a variety of things. And then we take and put it to SLIB. There's some burden that comes with all of that SLIB is going to have to take care of. And so this is moving it back down and providing some relief that the Department of Health, through working with the Hospital Association, your long-term care associations, your senior citizen centers, that they're saying this, if there's funds available, we've got some infrastructure improvements that you can do. Now, it doesn't prohibit a long-term care facility, for example, that feels like they've got a capital construction project that qualifies under ARPA for applying to the other one. This is just kind of a scaled down version. And then this allows them to also look at some of the providers that are distressed and that fit the ARPA guidelines and provide assistance to them as well.
So this is ARPA direct.
ARPA direct.
Further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Anything else in Department?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, when we were discussing the Health and Human Services capital construction account, I had made a motion regarding a match, and I just would like to clarify on that match that it would be land and buildings and not operational costs that would apply towards that match.
Everyone understand that motion? Second.
I'm not sure if it needs a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Is it just a clarification, or is
It's a clarification for staff and for the committee.
Mr. Chairman, I thought yesterday we had an extensive discussion about in-kind, including local folks performing labor. And I think the example was maybe they need heating and air conditioning equipment. So the grant pays for the equipment, but all the labor, the like value is provided by local folks. Wasn't that the discussion, Senator Hicks?
I think that failed.
No, it passed.
It passed.
It passed.
So that's what I'm trying to get some clarification is are we trying to reverse that decision, or what are we doing here?
Mr. Chair, go ahead.
And and I thought what we did, and maybe it's just good for, maybe it's a good time to have the discussion. I thought what we did yesterday was we kind of, we're looking at that and I remember the example that the vice president gave yesterday, but I thought ultimately, I thought it got a little really messy allowing labor in kind contributions. But I got to tell you, I see as the issue for me on in-kind contributions is, and I don't know how, you know, what it is if you've got something and you've got a hospital staff that's working and they're working all the time, and you say, well, that's my match because I've got operational costs. I struggle with that. But I also get the example that the vice president had, which is, hey, if I can install that and save the labor of having someone else come in and do it, and ultimately that's a benefit of the state, why wouldn't we allow that to be a match? And I don't know how you solve that problem, but I get a little nervous because ultimately, if we go too far down the road, there will be no match. And so I don't know how we solve that problem, but that's my concern is when we want to match, we want some kind of skin in the game as opposed to just incidental. So how do we do that?
Mr. Chairman, I believe where we left off was the committee instructed Don and I to reach out and see if we couldn't find a footnote language for a needs analysis. And I worked with the Office of State Lands and Investments as a needs analysis basis. A needs analysis determination may include a review of the entity's various financial information, including but not limited to revenue and other projections, budgets, financial statements, and audits. But I think we landed on a needs determination.
Mr. Chairman, so that's the sliding fee scale.
Before we go on, did you have, given that needs analysis description, does that affect your motion at all, or do you have? Okay. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, as Kevin shares that with us, and I've thought about this, or do we contemplate that this is going to be kind of like water projects where it will take a year that OSLI or somebody will evaluate and these proposals and then come back, and so they have some information before this that the SLID board can actually digest and then make the approval? Is that kind of what we're all thinking here?
Mr. Chairman, I believe the language he read is basically the sliding fee scale for matches for communities that don't have the match. The board can not require the match or make it less than 1-to-1. I remember I thought we did resolve this yesterday.
So, Mr. Chairman, and here's my, on the other side of it, it's all going to have to be eligible for ARPA direct funding anyway. And my question is, why would we go more restrictive? Why would we restrict these access for matching funds for ARP more than what the federal guidelines is? So even if we leave the language the way it is as a needs assessment, it's still going to have to comply with all the. But why would we go more restrictive if in-kind's eligible under ARP direct? Why would we go more restrictive for our communities to be?
So I think the answer to that is that we're trying to get a bigger bang for the buck.
Well, we're requiring a 1-to-1 match at least.
Yeah, but go ahead and respond if you'd like.
Well, I think the good co-chairman on the Senate side really stated it best. Your daily operational costs should not be utilized as a part of the match. We're talking about construction here. And so it really needs to be something in my mind, needs to be related to construction. And that's why I point out the land and buildings would apply, but not the operational costs. And so that's what I'm trying to avoid is just what the good co-chairman on the Senate side stated, is where you start down that slippery slope of saying, because I have a monthly payroll of X, then I'm going to apply that towards the state dollar match. And that is a different component than what I would believe to be the in-kind discussion that's being discussed.
So what I would suggest is that we vote on this motion, but then after whether it passes or fails, then we can take that motion and add it so that we can have both of them. That way it takes care of that problem, but it also then goes, If they just don't have the money, then it could be a needs analysis.
Mr. Chairman, so I'd have to motion restated, but the way I understand it was just for buildings, construction, and yet ARPA allows a significant amount of equipment too.
And-
Back to the example. So are we now restricting it with this motion just back to buildings and
Well, I think his rationale can be applied to equipment. I mean, operational costs or paying for your janitor doesn't mean that that's a matching.
Mr.
component
Chairman,
to equipment, so. Go ahead.
we don't actually have a motion. He started out to say, I just want to clarify what I did yesterday, and we were off to the races. Maybe we could have the motion restated
Yeah,
as a motion.
Well, I believe the most appropriate then, if that's what we'd like to do, is to understand what yesterday's motion, how yesterday's motion reads, so that it's tough to modify something if we're modifying ambiguous language, I guess is what I would.
Go ahead.
True.
Mr. Chairman, the issue that I'm aware of that came up after your action last night was actually not related to the in-kinds, but was a question of whether or not prior construction could or could not qualify for the match, meaning half of the facility was built during COVID and was unfinished or something like that. And could that be used as an in-kind?
And how far back that would go? 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
And my response is that I was not clear and that discussion would benefit from clarification.
Okay.
So that's the purpose I was inquiring.
But what is the motion? Where do we lie now?
We don't have a motion.
We don't have.
No, but what did we do yesterday at the end? What Kevin read.
No, that was only a part of it, the in-kind portion of it, and to require a one-to-one match was also included. But the question that was posed to us is, well, what about? And I'm sure there will be more what abouts, but what about construction that was previously done prior to the submission of the grant application, not coincident with the grant application?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I think, and that there, I mean, this is so it just occurs to me that you have a slippery slope no matter which way you go. So, for example, we talked about, you have does it have to be all new construction? Or if they built it in the last 3 years, would we allow the last 3 years match? I get it where if you say, well, your hospital, your facility's been there for 50 years, and now please, that's my match as I spent money 50 years ago, so that there's my match. So that's just that to me, that's kind of defeats the spirit of as much as just saying, well, I've got a big payroll, so there's my match. But it's a slippery slope in either direction. And I don't know how you solve that problem. Maybe you this isn't their first rodeo. Maybe you let them if you got the needs assessment, just let them figure it out. They've done this kind of stuff before.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask my colleagues if we adopt the needs language that Kevin read out that's currently used in MRG grants and so forth, can we knock at least that much out? All right, I'd move that we incorporate that needs language that Kevin read into the match language, so that those with have lesser match as it's expressed legally in his.
So but you're amending his motion. He doesn't have.
He didn't make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that for discussion. If we accept that, does that then change the one-to-one, not less than one-to-one? So they would at least not less than one-to-one, and then there would still be, then the needs assessment would go on top of that.
Mr.
That
Chairman,
evaluation.
Mr. Chairman, yes, it would. It would do it exactly the way that MRG and SLIB do now. If you've got Casper's coming in, they've got the resources for a one-to-one match. If Matizzi's come in and they don't have the one-to-one match, they look at their tax base, they look at their reserves, and they say, no match for you. It's been working for 30 years at least, I think.
Mr. Chairman, I'll give you the example of the other one that Midwest and Edgerton, they've been, I was a county commissioner more than 16 years ago. Even back then, they have a water line they just can't get replaced. And so they're direct, you take all their money, you take everything they do, they can't match it. They're just, I think their direct distribution out of the 105 million is maybe between $30,000 and $60,000. It's just, they just, and there's a lot, and they've got a $2 million water line they need to replace. We just voted on it and it failed. To try and do it with a 1 cent, it failed because I think we had out of 80,000 people in Trona County, we had, I think, how many vote? Maybe 7,000 people voted.
I don't think.
So at some point, it just gets to the point, these small towns just can't do it. If we require those matches.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Anything else? Don?
Mr. Chairman, there was some discussion about modifying from Governor's Letter number 17. I believe this is out of the conserved general funds, $5 million down to $1.5 million.
Second.
You get a little bit bigger hint.
Under Perkins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's been done.
Need in for some extra help.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that occurred a little bit differently than I
Yeah.
tracked.
Anything else, Don?
We have some for section 300s, but I don't believe I have anything further on ARPA.
Move to close governor's letters.
I remove my second, Mr. Chairman. Reduction.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. So section 300s.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe Representative Walters might have something on the use of ARP funds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go into section 311 and to our previously adopted language that concurred with the governor's one-time recommendations. My motion would be to amend the language to include concurrence with the governor's intention to fund agencies specified in his recommendations with revenue shortfall ARPA funds and return those affected agencies, divisions, and units to general funds in the 23-24 standard budget, and to further direct the governor to maximize conservation of state funds through expenditure of allowable revenue shortfall ARPA and allowable expenditures under ARPA direct permissible uses. And would offer that as the motion and then let staff have a little bit of literary liberty and license to make that happen.
Does everyone understand the motion?
Mr. Chairman, the first sentence there, it may not be necessary, but it basically supports the governor's action with the Department of Health and the Department of Corrections, recognizing they will be on ARP revenue shortfall for this biennium and will return to general funds for the following biennium. I think that one's pretty straightforward. The second one is a policy choice as to whether or not you wish to direct the governor or encourage the governor to identify all other areas
Right.
for use of direct and revenue replacement, in addition to his letter which you adopted on.
Yeah, we want them to keep going.
So, yeah,
If we can convert more direct to conserve, that's what we want them to do. Okay. Any more further questions about all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion carries. Next, Don.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, so Dawn, under that scenario, if we have direct, ARPA direct for the next biennium still available, and then we turn around and use those again to fund the Department of Corrections and some of these that we have this biennium, would those be eligible expenditures for a second biennium?
Mr. Chairman, all of those have to be committed by December 2024 and then expended by December 2026. Yes, we would have some time to do that arguably, but I don't think that's the desire. I think the desire is to do it as quickly as possible.
Mr. Chairman, yes, as quickly as possible, and we're doing everything we can to get that full maximized ARPA revenue replacement. The other thing is that we have the calculated amount now that's 585 million. And that increased because of the change in the Treasury guidance for the inflation. But we don't believe, now we have the opportunity to go into the next fiscal period and do the calculation again, but we don't think that we're going to have a revenue loss in the next calculation because of the oil and gas, et cetera. So we think that we'll maximize this, but if we do have a revenue calculation in the future and we have ARPA remaining, then we could, but it's unlikely.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, that's not really the question I was trying to get at. So that's not necessarily lost revenue. It would just be to continue to use ARPA for the second biennium for something like the Department of Corrections where it's an offset. Is that going to be eligible for and even if we had to do it for 1 year in a supplemental to make sure that they're obligated to spend, is that a possibility?
Mr. Chairman, it will remain a possibility for ARPA permissible into the future, but I think we've maximized our ability to convert.
Okay, thank you.
Don?
Go ahead. We'll go ahead and finish. I'll do that. We need to go back. I need to go back and make another, Mr. Chairman, I need to make another motion with respect to an adjustment back on the conserved ARPA money, but why don't we finish the 300s first and then we'll go back and do that.
Don?
Was that last motion adopted?
Yes.
Okay. The next item we had was for, you had reduced the $100 million of matching funds down to $75 million.
Oh, that's the one. Okay, it is my turn. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, talking with the governor's office about our actions yesterday. I mean, the match that they need to have the ability to go on the CCU and the CCUS project, and it is 100 million. Not 75, it's 100. So if we get the home run, it'll be money well spent. If we don't hit the home run, it's still going to be available. Eventually would flow to the LSRA or other uses. So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we restore the
25.
Yeah, to the, what's that?
Restore 25.
Yeah, restore 20, move it back up to 100 million.
Second.
Don?
And what fund source?
It's the conservative ARPA. Well, yeah, well.
Same as the other.
Oh, I think it's SIPA. I'm sorry. It's SIPA. We did all SIPA, didn't we? It's SIPA.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Anything else? Well, we've got,
Chairman.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we include the section 314 and 315 from last year or last biennium's budget bill. If I get a second, I'll tell you what it was. We walked through these the other day when we were doing these section 300s. And this is the one that is the secondary cap based on, and I would make the motion using the January 2022 Craig levels for severance taxes and FMRs. And it's the same language that were in those secondary caps in the last budget bill.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we just can't go for that one, but let's take the vote.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Nope.
that motion carries. Sorry.
Division.
All those in favor, raise their hand. All those opposed.
Oh.
That motion carries. Sorry. Any more?
Mr.
Don?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple more. Yesterday, excuse me, you talked about leaving a set amount of money for the floor in the general fund. And this, to be clear, would be on top of the 5% spending policy, or not spending policy, statutory reserve amount in the budget reserve amount. And we need some direction as to what that number might be, how much you want to leave in the general fund before the sweeps occur.
So Don, tell us where we are.
Yeah, tell us where we are.
Yeah, do you need a minute?
Well,
You need a minute? We can take a 5-minute break.
unfortunately, I think it will take more than a 5-minute break.
Okay.
But what I can say is you have, I think, nearly exhausted, I won't say entirely, if you adopt the water bill that is not before you, $95 million. You won't have.
I think that's coming out. That's why we did the 50.
Oh, okay.
Right.
It helps me with my math.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, you will have some ARPA direct that you will be able to carry over on the order of $100+ million,
I think it's great,
$150 million.
130.
Yeah, right. The SIPA remains underwater now about $136 million. So we would need some direction to address that, whether it's a transfer.
Yeah, we'll do a budget balancer for that.
And unfortunately, I don't have
I think we can safely say there's going to be 50 million. Yeah.
far over,
Yeah.
far over 50 million. If you wanted to leave 100, 200, you would still be well within any parameters.
But I think 50 is a good number.
I
Too
mean,
much?
Well, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we will disclose to them exactly where they are. They'll know exactly how
Yeah,
much is
actually,
left.
I don't know if we need to leave.
And
it in.
so the question is, is there a recommendation we'd like to make to our floors that we would request that they consider keeping it under a certain amount, but they're going to do what they're going to do. But there's certainly nothing wrong with making a recommendation from the JAC.
So, yeah, my preference is we don't need to make a recommendation. We're going to present the budget. They're going to see how much we have for overage.
And it'll be, they have the right to decide and vote on what they do with all of it every time. So.
Very good, Mr. Chairman. How about the existing surplus automatically sweeps to the LSRA? I presume I will have to remove that sweep in part because you won't have enough funds. $600 million, $660 million is scheduled to sweep on June 30th of this year. Even to address, your appropriations, including appropriations to savings, we will need to use a portion of that fund.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable? Okay,
Well, yeah.
good. No, I think that's.
Well, isn't that part of the budget balancers for whatever?
Exactly.
Right.
We're just looking for what's the first draft on that.
Yeah, so I think my impression was that on the budget balancer that you would true up SIPA and then you would sweep.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman, do we need language in that budget balancer to true up SIPA because I don't think SIPA is identified in there now. And so I'd make that motion that in the budget balancers that we give them authority to true up SIPA with general funds and then proceed on.
Great. And so I'm interpreting that to fully fund SIPA so that it's not negative and use LSRA as needed for your appropriations to savings.
If needed.
Right. And I'm actually taking general funds before it goes into LSRA.
Well, and then the language, any other appropriations that come out during the session, you true up that as well and then sweep the remaining.
Okay. Yeah. I just needed a little guidance on that one.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I do have two or three others, but could we take 2 minutes and I could visit with
Right,
folks?
well, we've got one other motion before, because we're getting towards the end of the day, right? And so go ahead.
Well, do you, I think, do you want to make, or yours relevant to changes we need to make in here?
Well, Mr. Chairman, honestly, there are items, a handful, maybe 4 or 5 items. I just want to, I don't want to visit. Right, I want to visit
You want
with
to
the
visit
members.
first? So, well, we have a motion that Representative Walters is going to make. We can
Let's
make it
take a
now.
5-minute break.
Just want 5 minutes to gather your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. We'll
Okay.
be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
one more motion that we know of. So go ahead. Representative Walters.
I think it was an outstanding issue, but I would move to have all of the conserved general funds just included in the budget bill.
Is there a second? Second. Question on the motion. All those in favor say, what's that?
Nothing, it just is one less bill, but.
Just one less bill to answer. One less egg to fry.
So,
I vote aye.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
no,
No. That
motion cast. passes.
motion carries.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay. Anything else? I think we're about done. Anything else we got to do today, Don? Okay, Kevin?
Mr. Chairman, just a house cleaning item. We have Mr. Mike Ogle in our audience today. He has worked for the state of Wyoming for 42 years. He's a fabulous employee. I've never seen better. And he's
Trying to depress him, or are
retiring.
you trying to honor him?
He is retiring in April.
Speech. His calling presence has been felt.
All right. Okay, Don. Oh, well, first of all, just Annie, thank you, Don. Thank you, Elizabeth and LSO staff. We put you guys, Karen, Mary Lee, what a grind you guys got to do putting up with us. And the work you do and the nights you put in particularly is just unbelievable. You are a credit to the state of Wyoming, and nobody really knows. So thank you very much. Okay, my fellow appropriations members, thank you. Thank you for your service and time. It really is enjoyable working with you. We'll have a Zoom meeting to kind of sew all these things together, and we have to wait on when it's ready. So, yeah. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, thanks to you and the chairman for keeping us and getting this done now.